never imagined something like this would happen to me. I always thought my life was just normal. A little routine, sure, but stable. I'm Matt, 34. Married to Emily, 32. We've been together for almost 10 years, and we have 2 kids. Pretty straightforward life. I'm a graphic designer, Emily's a schoolteacher, and we live in a quiet suburban neighborhood. I'd always been the trusting type, and I loved my wife deeply. She was everything I wanted in a partner. Or at least I thought she was. It started on a Thursday afternoon. I was at home, working on a new project, when I noticed something strange in the mail. A plain, unmarked envelope, addressed to me. The handwriting was neat but unfamiliar. I opened it without much thought, figuring it was junk or something mundane. But what I found inside made my heart stop. There was a stack of photos, each one more shocking than the last. They were of Emily. But not just any photos, they were of her and another man. There was one where she was laughing with him at a cafe, another where they were standing close together at what looked like a park, their hands brushing. The last photo made my stomach churn. It was of them in what seemed to be a hotel room, her head leaning against his shoulder as he smiled. Under the photos there was a note. It read, "I know what she's done to me, and I think you should know too. I won't be the one who keeps this secret. It's only fair you see the truth." And that was it. No return address. No name. Just a trail of proof that my entire world was about to unravel. I could barely breathe as I flipped through the photos. My hands shook. Couldn't wrap my head around it. How could she do this? How could Emily betray me like this? She had always been the kind of person who spoke about trust like it was sacred. We had a good marriage, I thought. No signs, no warning. No nothing. I tried to stay calm, but my mind was racing. This couldn't be real. There had to be an explanation. Maybe it was all a setup. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. These were pictures of Emily, and it was clear she wasn't just hanging out with a friend. Then, as I looked closer, I saw something else that made my heart drop even further. There was a phone number scribbled at the bottom of the note. "Call me if you want the full story." I stared at the number for what felt like an eternity. Who was this person? Why would they send me this? And what the hell was going on? I sat there, frozen, for what seemed like hours. My mind kept circling back to the same question. Why? Why would Emily do this? Who was this man? And why had he decided to tell me now? I couldn't stay in that house any longer. The walls felt like they were closing in. My thoughts were a mess. I grabbed my phone, my fingers trembling as I dialed the number. The phone rang 3 times before someone picked up. "Hello." The voice was calm. Too calm, considering the weight of what was happening. "This is Matt. I got your letter. Who are you?" I felt my throat go dry as I spoke. There was a pause. Then the voice replied, "You don't know me, but I know your wife very well. And I know what she's been doing behind your back." I swallowed hard. This is real. The man didn't sound like someone who was lying. He sounded almost resigned. "Look," I said, trying to steady myself. "I don't know who you are, but this is insane. Why send me this? What do you want from me?" The man's voice softened. "I want you to have the truth. I've been where you are now, and I can't keep this to myself anymore. She lied to me, just like she lied to you." I felt a lump form in my throat. "What do you mean?" "You're not the only one she's been seeing." And that's when the floodgates opened. This wasn't just some mistake or misunderstanding. This wasn't a one-time thing. The man on the other end of the line had been seeing Emily for months, and the betrayal ran much deeper than I could have ever imagined. Before I could ask him anything else, he said, "I have more evidence. Meet me tomorrow and I'll give you everything. You need to know the full story." I wasn't sure what to do. The shock, the anger, the confusion, it was too much. But I knew one thing for sure. I needed answers. I had to meet this man. I had to know everything. And just like that, my life took a turn I never saw coming. The next day, I found myself pacing in front of a small, nondescript cafe downtown, waiting for this mysterious man to show up. My hands were clammy, my heart hammering in my chest. I still couldn't fully process everything. Emily had betrayed me, but she had also betrayed him. The man I was about to meet was no stranger to the pain I was feeling right now. But would he even give me the full truth? Would he be honest with me? As I stood there, I saw him approach. A tall, disheveled man in his mid-30s. His eyes were dark, hollow almost, and his expression was one of quiet determination. He looked at me for a moment before walking over. "You must be Matt," he said, his voice flat. I nodded, too stunned to speak. He motioned for me to follow him, and we sat down at a table in the corner, away from anyone who might overhear. "I'm Aaron," he said, "and you're not the first person to be blindsided by Emily." There was a bitterness in his voice, but also something else. Couldn't place it. Was it guilt? Regret? He looked down at his hands for a moment before continuing. "I'm not proud of what happened, but I'm not the one who needs to feel ashamed here." I swallowed hard. What does that mean? What did she do? Aaron reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small USB drive. He slid it across the table to me. "All the evidence you need is on here. Pictures, texts, everything. She's been with me for over 6 months. Behind your back. But I'm not the one you need to confront." I stared at the USB drive for a moment, disbelief flooding me. It was all true. Emily wasn't just seeing someone else. She had been in a full-blown affair, and she had kept it from me for so long. I thought it was over between us," Aaron continued, his eyes darkening. "But then she started pulling away from me, too. Started acting distant. I thought she was just busy with work, or her kids, but I soon realized she was pulling the same thing on me that she'd been doing to you. I wasn't her only one. I felt a mix of anger and heartbreak. How could she do this? Not just to me, but to him too. Why are you telling me this now?" I asked, my voice shaky. "Why send me the letter? Why bring all this up?" Aaron hesitated, his jaw tightening. "Because I didn't deserve to be treated like a fool either. She used me just like she used you. But it wasn't until she started pulling away from me that I figured out what she was really doing. She cheated on me too. I've been hurt enough, and I know what it feels like. So I'm giving you the truth, man. She doesn't get to hide behind her lies anymore." I sat there, in shock, unable to say anything. The betrayal felt like it was suffocating me. Emily was not the woman I thought I knew. "What's the next step?" I finally managed to ask. Aaron looked at me with a strange, almost sad smile. "That's for you to decide. I've done what I needed to. I gave you the truth. Now it's time to confront her. But just so you know," he paused for a moment, and I could see the remorse in his eyes, "I don't think she's going to admit it to you. She's not that kind of person." I felt a sickening knot form in my stomach. The pain of the betrayal, the shock, and the anger were almost too much to bear. I wanted to scream, to shout at her, but I had to confront her, on my own terms. I took the USB drive, stuffing it into my pocket, and stood up. "Thanks for telling me. I don't know how to repay you." Aaron nodded. "You don't need to. Just make sure she faces what she's done." The drive back home felt like a blur. I could hardly think, my mind still spinning from everything I just learned. How was I supposed to look Emily in the eye after all of this? How was I going to live with this knowledge? When I arrived home, Emily was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables for dinner. She smiled at me as if nothing was wrong, as if the world wasn't crumbling around us. "Hey, how was your day?" she asked casually. I stared at her for a moment, trying to gather the strength to say something. My mouth went dry. How do I start this conversation? I walked over to the kitchen counter and placed the USB drive down in front of her. "Do you know what this is?" I asked, my voice cold. She looked at it, then at me, confused. "What's going on, Matt?" "Sit down," I said, my tone leaving no room for negotiation. "We need to talk." Emily's face shifted from confusion to concern as she sat down. I could see the walls going up, but I didn't care anymore. Couldn't care. I needed the truth. I needed to confront her. "Who's Aaron?" I asked bluntly, watching her face closely. Her eyes widened in shock, and her breath caught in her throat. What do you mean? Who is Aaron?" I repeated, my voice shaking with barely contained rage. For a moment, she stayed silent, looking like she was trying to figure out how to respond. I could see the guilt written all over her face. You don't have to say anything, I said, cutting her off, my voice quieter now. I already know. I saw the photos, the texts. I spoke to him. I know everything. Her face paled, and her lips trembled. She looked like she was about to crumble, but she didn't say a word. Then, with the coldest look I could muster, I added, "It's over, Emily." And that was when everything fell apart.